Welcome to episode 1 of Otto's Book Club. And on the first ever episode of the book club, we got the hidden history of Jesus, his royal family, and the birth of Christianity, the Jesus Dynasty by James D. Tabor, Tabor, Tab, Tabor, Tabor, James D. Tabor. Yeah, the Jesus Dynasty by James D. Tabor. And yeah, man, this is the first episode of the book club. You know, what I'm trying to do is when I read a book, um, I just come and talk about it for like a couple of minutes, like a short synopsis, my thoughts on it, things like that. Like right now in like my book collection in my room, I got like a couple of books that I'm currently reading. I'm not gonna lie, a couple of them are religiousy type of books per se, right? Like in the book club series, I'm definitely trying to have um a wide variety of things. Like right now, it's like more so nonfiction, theology based, but also mix some fiction in there, biographies, things like that. I have like a Kobe biography type of book. I got a Socrates book. I got and yeah, just like whatever I'm reading, you know what I mean? Just come back and do a talk, book club episode on it, right? And then also collab with people where, if me and someone else read the same book, we get together for an episode. But yeah, man, episode 1, we got the Jesus Dynasty by James E. Tabor. Yo, I got this in the Inquiring Minds bookstore in Socrates, New York, a couple weeks ago. This book, I'm gonna say it is a definitely a good book because, like, if you're an author, I'm guessing, like, if you're a creative, you kind of want people to digest your art. Yo, if there's ever a point where like you're a musician, you want someone to engage in your music and be like hooked the whole length of whatever the song is. If you're a actor, you want someone to be um like just deep in your character, whatever character you're playing. Same thing, I feel like if you're an author, you want someone to engage in your book and be kind of hooked the whole way, right? So like with this book, I started reading it on like I think I read this like 2 weeks ago. I finished it in like 2 3 days. Like I read a couple the first day, the second day, and no, the second day I read it, I was like, nah, bro. I read like 150 pages, and I was like, yo, I gotta finish it, right? And it's kind of like regardless of my views on the book and like its theology, things like that, I'm like, nah, I gotta finish this book. The synopsis of this book is kind of like a, let's say, like a retelling or an explanation to the Jesus story, essentially, right? I was talking about presupposition. So when you have the presupposition on how the story ends, you can then build your facts around that case. So if you have the presupposition that Jesus was a normal man, um, miracles don't happen, the supernatural doesn't isn't a thing. People can't prophesy things. There isn't a spiritual realm. Then you kind of look at the facts and you place them into that box. So one big thing I took from this book is presuppositions, right? So in this book, I feel like James or Mr. Tabor or whatever, he presupposes a lot of things, a lot of things. If you have any indication or inkling of what Orthodox Christianity is, this is like the total opposite, right? So that's why it's kind of like interesting. Me as someone who tries to hold on to Orthodox Christian beliefs, this is like the total opposite of what it is, right? So the premise of Jesus has a human father. Um, you know, most Christians would believe that Mary was, I think, the Immaculate Conception and that she was a virgin her whole life. Mary had sex after she gave birth to Jesus. Um, and that Jesus didn't resurrect from the grave, right? That he wasn't God, right? So when I mention presuppositions, I feel like the book is coming from that worldview of like no miracles, um, no supernatural kind of things, right? So I think this author says that Jesus was married to like Mary Magdalene or whatever, and did their thing, right? And yeah, so just from that presupposed worldview, there's a lot that wouldn't fit into Christian theology. And me rambling about that, I don't think that necessarily speaks to how good the book is because it is a very engaging book. It just speaks to me in my theology, how it would kind of be different. A lot of cool things that this book opened my eyes to, or at least gave me a different insight on how in Orthodox Christianity we have John being the beloved disciple, where this book claims that James, the brother of Jesus, is actually the beloved disciple, and James is the one who started the church, not Peter, which is, it can be catastrophic depending on what you are. Like if I come from a Protestant type of lineage or whatever, I wouldn't, not that I don't affirm a pope or whatever, but you could say I don't affirm the pope. So it wouldn't really matter to me who started the Catholic Orthodox Church because I'm not Catholic Orthodox, right? Whereas if you were Catholic or Orthodox, then you would say that would kind of challenge you in a sense because Peter is that first line in succession, not James, the brother of not James, the brother of Jesus. So if we have the worldview or the presupposition that the Gospels aren't divinely inspired, we revert to, okay, how did the Gospels come about? One person wrote a form of the gospel, then someone else kind of copied it, filled in the blanks, boom, boom, boom. Then someone else kind of used that as reference, did that, boom, boom, boom. And then there are hidden gospels like the Gospel Q. There are other supporting texts which aren't invalid, but they come into play too, where it's not necessarily a divinely inspired gospel written by four different eyewitness accounts. It's more so a collaborative effort to, advance a new religion, right? Another presupposition was that James doesn't believe that Jesus resurrected, even though he did believe that he was crucified and died. So all the accounts of the disciples seeing the resurrected Jesus is kind of like put to the side, essentially, kind of like not giving a second thought or whatever. But I mean, it makes sense. If you don't believe things like that happen or can happen, you would have to explain them in a way that fits, kind of your worldview or whatever. I mean, it definitely is a good book, definitely interesting. But yeah, you can see how someone who, even though I'm not Orthodox or Catholic, I try to hold to, I'm trying my best to hold to those Orthodox kind of Christian beliefs, right? And this book is the total opposite of that. But it definitely is good because it challenges your it can challenge your worldview, right? After reading this, I'm going online, kind of seeing if there's rebuttals. I'm seeing that a lot of scholars kind of either debunk him or don't take some of his theories as strongly as I guess he does, right? Because there are other theories out there, stuff like that, right? Like even towards the end of the book, it said, if Jesus had a human father and he never resurrected, and Jesus just came to earth just to preach to repent of your sins, boom, 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 then it would be more in line with the Muslim faith and things like that. I disagreed with that because I don't even believe Muslims believe that about Jesus, because Muslims believe that Jesus had was born of a virgin too. Essentially, like Muslims and Christians don't believe the same exact things about Jesus, but a Muslim's view of Jesus is probably higher than um, a Jew's view of Jesus, or like a agnostic's view of Jesus, or even agnostic maybe in some cases. So if Jesus had a human father, Jesus was just like a regular person, like nothing too crazy or whatever, then that would kind of go against the Quran's teaching of Jesus too, right? Um, and I believe the Quran has, I don't know if it has high praise of Mary, but yeah, I can't say that for sure. And even though this isn't really a book about the whole entire Bible is about just the four main, gospels and really the New Testament. My thing would just be like, I wanted it to attack all aspects of the story, like the good parts, right? So turning water into wine, Jesus walking on water, these divinity claims, the certain prophecies, things like that. And you know what, it makes sense because I guess the book is more so outlining literally just like the life and death. So he was born. This is what could have happened when he was born. He probably had like a Roman father. And then also the story of Mary too, because, yeah, if Mary, had to marry Joseph's brother after Joseph died and had no kids, then that kind of goes against the Mary being a virgin her whole life or whatever, right? Like me personally, that wouldn't affect my faith in any way, because not that I don't think of Mary, but it's just that I don't, like, regardless, she's a mother of God, and she's blessed among women. Like, regardless, no matter if she had sex with, no matter if she had sex after or not, I don't think that would really affect me in any ways. But I think all my points really are just me doing a rebuttal to his points, right? But the book itself is a solid book. I'll say 8 out of 10. Um, Obviously, if you're a Christian, right, you probably won't enjoy the book as much, in the sense of, like, how the story plays, and this book kind of, it's like a retelling essentially. So it's like you already have your lore, your canon, and this book is kind of going against the canon. You're like, nah, I don't really kind of like it. But in a sense of it just being like a fun book to maybe just open your eyes to certain things, certain aspects, because at the end of the day, I feel like the story has already been written, and we're kind of looking back into the past 2,000 years later. So obviously, it's going to be some things that we miss, some things we just don't care as much about, as much as someone in, ancient, as much as an ancient Jew would care about things, we probably wouldn't care as much. And that's just a product. We're just a product of our time at the end of the day. We can't really do nothing about that. But yeah, definitely a solid book. 8 out of 10. I got some other books that are in this realm that I'm gonna be reading. So the funny thing is I have another book. I think it's called The Kingdoms of Christ, which is the opposite of this. It's really about the early church, and obviously it's from the aspect of a Christian who affirms all the Christian Nicene creeds and all that. Whereas this isn't. It's on the opposite side. Um, I'm also trying to read The Unseen Realm by Dr. Heiser. And then there's a bunch of other books by him that I'm trying to read as well. But yeah, man, anyways, solid book. This is episode 1 of Otto's book club, The Jesus Dynasty, James D.Tabor. I would recommend, yeah, because I would recommend, if you're watching this, I would recommend you read this, definitely. Because no matter what, no matter if you're Muslim, Buddhist, agnostic, Gnostic, whatever, right? It's definitely an interesting read. And at the end of the day, a book is a book, a story is a story. We live in a world that is a living book, essentially, right? Each person is a book in itself. And Jesus was a person as well. No matter if you believe that he was the God man, he was, God, and then a man at the same time. If you just believe he was just a man, or if you believe he was just God, like, regardless, he was born and he was a baby and he had to grow up, and at some point he died. um Everyone can affirm that. No matter, I think the argument is, all right, so after he died, what happened, right? Because as a Christian, we're going to say after he died he resurrected, and I mean, now the Christian story. But whether you believe, if you're a Muslim, you believe that he never even died on the cross. He was taken up to heaven before that happened, or we believe he was a false prophet, or he was, amen. At the end of the day, he was born, he lived, and he died. So I guess we just trying to figure out what happened. How did he live? Why did he live? Why did he do the things that he did? Um, and yeah, man, first episode of the book club. I may have to come back and then maybe break down, chapter by chapter, maybe, or I'll just go to another book, right? Just because I'm finished with it doesn't mean I'm finished with it forever. But yeah, man, Otto out. Yeah, Otto out.